Okay, so good morning again, Dr. Dahiru Sani. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. This awesome interview and conversation as well within the education space. And we'd like to basically know very quickly, who is Dr. Dahiru Sani, and what were your growing up years? What were they like?
Thank you very much. It is really indeed an honor and pleasure to be part of this. Let me put it this way: your reputation actually precedes you, and knowing and following all the magazines, the ones I've seen, I really am lifted by your work. So for Dahiru to be associated with this is a huge step for me. So Dahiru is a very young man who was born sometime in the 60s. Well, I was born the tail end of the 60s, actually. Very tail end. I think I got the 60s by just one year. Oh yeah. Well, So early life was in Kaduna. I was born here in Kaduna State, but I had the privilege of being born into a family of intellectuals. My dad was a catering and hospitality expert, and he was virtually responsible for bringing in hospitality and tourism technology from Italy, from the US, and Britain into northern Nigeria. So he was one of the early Nigerians who had that responsibility to grow chains of hotels, 5-star hotels, because they were really, seeing Nigeria at that time, particularly northern Nigeria, as a hub for tourism. So this is what kind of shapes my early life. So we also had the opportunity of visiting quite a lot of those countries early in life, so it gave me an opportunity. I speak French very well. Je parle très bien français. Si vous voulez, on peut continuer cette leçon en français, si vous voulez. But that's not the topic of the day, But I think that really has helped my worldview. Primary school was at the Kaduna Capital School, and eventually secondary school was at the Federal Government College. In those days, top notch. And eventually I ended up at the Ahmadu Bello University, where I did my bachelor's in business, specializing in finance. Again, I went into stock investment securities in my MBA, and eventually I went into derivative markets in my PhD at the Swiss University. I'm also currently running another doctoral program right now. I'm focusing on development finance, because I'm also beginning to see that where the challenge is going to be for Africa the next 10 years will be, how do they manage the current epidemic of debt? So in a nutshell, this is me, my current interest, and I'm sure as we continue the conversations, you'll learn more. Thank you. I hope this is good enough.
Awesome. That's so good to know. That's so good to know. And we now see why you are who you are, really. That's awesome. So going to the next one, what are your likes and dislikes?
Yeah, I love this question. This is a beautiful question. I think my dislikes essentially are when I see people who don't strive. Let me start from that perspective. When I see people who are entitled, when I see laziness, when I see people who are not connected to intellectual reasoning, that don't value the fact that you have to give something to your brain to be able to produce something out of it. I really dislike those things. What I really, really love is, first and foremost, let me confess to you, I love love. I'm obsessed with love. I think love is the biggest power that God has given us of this universe. Is the biggest power. And secondly, I am really into innovation. When you see A, I want you to be able to tell me that, oh, this is A, but I can put it this way. It can be A, it can be R, it can be I like people seeing things from different angles, different perspectives. If I see B, anything at all, anything being done, anything being thought, anything being created, I want to be able for you to be able to tell me that we can do this way, we can do this better. There's never a best. For me, it's always about how are you able to iterate. And I think that is really what drives advancement at the end of the day. So yeah, this
very correct.
The device mind.
Very correct. Very good to know that. So now, as an individual who has attained, okay, go on.
No, I just want to say I love that answer, Dahiru.
Okay.
I love the way you put it as well. Because,
okay. I'm speaking off script, so I don't know.
Yes,
I can't remember what I said. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just because I tuned into that so much. I'm somebody who always believes that there's never just one way. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I love the way you put it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So next is that as an individual who has attained the very highest level educationally, in addition to having several professional certifications under your belt, what recommendations would you make to strengthen Nigeria's education system?
Fantastic. The Nigerian educational system is really still. Let's give it a bit of a historical perspective. Where is the educational system coming from? Okay, so the educational system in Nigeria, from primary to tertiary, if you look at the entire value chain of production of people who we call quote unquote educated, is still suffering from the original design of service and not innovation. The British bequeathed on us an educational system, good, but embedded in that educational system is, to be able to maintain a specific type of status quo, to maintain the institutions they created, to support the intentions of the colonial masters. That's why you see that we are still up to today very steeped in what I call the pedagogistic elements of education, meaning looking at everything from every learner as a baby, every learner as a child. Our educational system has not evolved where you give independence to learners as they individuate. In psychology, that's what we call separation individuation, meaning that between 0 to 18, 0 to 15, it's just like the process that the metamorphosis that a caterpillar goes through, so that a butterfly goes through eventually. So with each stage of that metamorphosis, the methodology for educating people has to change. So our educational system is still tied heavily tied to that I know it all, I'm the professor, I'll teach you, I'll hand the information to you, cram it, return it back to me. That's how we perceive education. And I think that's one of the fundamental drawbacks. The second drawback is really the manufacturing, the essence, what it has turned to today. It has turned to what I call manufacturing of certificates. We're not producing graduates. We have institutions we have a value chain that at the end of the day produces a certificate rather than an individual. When I say an individual, I'm saying that somebody who can stand his own. I have a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. To that extent, I should be able to, facilitate any agricultural intervention from end to end. I have a master's. I should be able to create a new approach to agricultural practices in my country. I have a PhD. I should be able to, in fact, develop theories, that should serve the purpose of future agricultural arrangements, agricultural projects, agricultural ideas in my country and the world over. I have a PhD, yes. I should be able to even stand my own and do things that people outside the country can look at my continent and say, yes, there's something that comes out of this continent. How you'll understand this, sir, is just try something. Look at, all of you went to school. How many textbooks were written by Africans? How many textbooks that you used were written by Nigerians, Africans? How many textbooks came out of this continent? How many of all those lofty economic theories that we use, from my perspective, finance theories, that we use that shapes our eventual, graduation. How many came out of the continent? So if you look at the fundamentals of our educational system, it's all like that. So if somebody is designing an educational system, he's designing an educational system in the light of his own challenges. If you are going to follow that educational system, you are going to only fall in line so that you become an agent of solving his own problems. So if you look at economics, for example, from Ricardo, you understand, to Keynes, all of them were challenged by scarcity. So the basis of the economics that they were teaching or they were professing, which we all come to accept today, is that, resources are scarce. And that is our mentality. But in Africa, resources are abundant. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. So the economics that should drive our own thought process is the harnessing or the management of abundance, rather than looking at it that the resources are scarce. Look at Nigeria. Just take Nigeria, forget about Congo, forget about Sierra Leone, forget about the gold fields in South Africa, look at the entire continent. So the basis of the economics we practice, for example, in Africa is flawed. That's why the continent is suffering. The knowledge is based on people who didn't have. They didn't have. They have winter, they have this, they have. For the whole year, there is scarcity. So that's why they became explorers, and they developed theories that actually can help them explore, that can help them, undermine, that can help them recalibrate arrangement in which they refer to as in quote unquote capitalism, maximization of profits, and so on and so forth. In our own case, it's not that way. So we have to wake up as a continent, as Nigerians, because we actually are the leaders of this continent, and say, hey, wait a minute, we can look at this in another way. And our academics can come up and say, okay, let us develop another theory, giving our own abundance. And it becomes a DB theory of economics. And test it, validate it, and sell it. It is at that point in time that our educational system will begin to liberate this continent. But right now we have an educational system that's trapped, steeped in what what I call the nuanced understanding. Yeah, it looks like I froze or you froze. I don't know what happened.
Yes, you froze for a while, so we didn't even know when you finished talking. Yeah. But
okay, so where did I stop?
No, we got the message clearly. We got the message clearly.
Okay.
In terms of.
Sorry. I think the last you said it was
in our own pattern of theories.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Go ahead. Before I land, go ahead, sir.
Okay. No, go ahead. So you can land.
Yeah. So we have a responsibility to rethink our educational system from primary to tertiary, from our own perspective, from our own challenges, from our own abundance, from our own cultural, what I call our own cultural understanding. I'll give you an example. Do you know how many engineers, how many medical doctors, how many environmental design experts we have lost in this country simply because we say they must speak English? I went to China, they were not speaking English. All the transactions I was doing in China was with mobile phone. I just typed the number, they see it, we agreed. And they were experts. I've seen Chinese doctors, they don't speak English. I've seen Chinese engineers, they don't speak English. I've seen Russian engineers, they don't speak English. What is this obsession with English language? Why must I score A1 or C4 in English before I get into tertiary education? What's the meaning of this nonsense? Start with a few disciplines, for example, and say, look, these disciplines have been localized. If you're Yoruba land, you can speak, we are going to teach, just a few, we're not saying start all. We're going to teach history in Yoruba. We're going to teach some discipline, we will have that option, the local language option. There's so many, kids out here who are lost, but they are very sound, very sound, but simply because, unfortunately, they never had that opportunity to speak English language. We even undermined them, and they were never anything. These are the bandits today. They are the bandits because they were educationally excluded because we are tied to the fact that they must speak English before education. No, every language is a language. Every language has a right to evolve into, translation of a discipline for people to understand it within the context of their environment. So these are some of the things, the realities that distinguished gentlemen, that we have to sit down and face as a country, as a continent.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. Just to watch the points as well.
Yes, sir.
There were some conversations we had before at EduTimes Africa, and we have looked at it that for an average British engineer to come to understand, or American or German, to come to understand whatever the context of their discipline will be, they flow directly from their language to that discipline.
It's natural.
But for us in Nigeria and Africa, we have a language barrier first. So you need to cross that barrier of understanding that secondary language before you now begin to understand the physics, understand the chemistry, which is part of the opportunity that abound that you talked about. Somebody was taken away as a slave and came back and translated the Bible, the English Bible, to Yoruba. And so what it means is that there are so many Christians today in the Southwest. They don't have to understand English before understanding the works and everything that happened in the Bible. And they even know the Bible better than so many people who speak this Queen's English and are able to actually, converse or discuss with large gatherings and all of that. So we need to actually cross that bridge before we can actually, get and go forward as a people. And you are very correct, sir. You are very, very correct. And until we do that, we hope that opportunity will come for people to be able to move directly.
Yes,
to do things.
Yeah, if you have a medical doctor in Jigawa State, somewhere inside Jigawa State, what does he need English for? Who is he speaking English to? His job is to treat the kids, they treat the mothers, to treat the elderly. They don't speak English there. Nobody's going to speak English to them. If you go to the in-depth, those states, right down in there, the dialect of Yoruba must to complicate your life. They speak a bit of English, but still, the man who is even sick is better able to explain what is wrong with him from his local language perspective. Imagine interfacing it with medicine that is understood from that perspective. It will make a difference. So this educational exclusion, because of language barrier, is a big, massive dent on our future. Massive dent on our future, which we have to change. They say, but to get into university, English must be, you must pass English, pass mathematics. Nonsense. What rubbish, And then now they say we have to go abroad, must pass IELTS. I said, bullshit. What IELTS? I said, subsequently now, any European that's coming to work in Nigeria must pass at least Yoruba ELTS or Hausa ELTS or Igbo ELTS. They will charge them for it as well. Yes, now.
Awesome.
Reciprocity.
Very correct. After all, we take their visa and we collect our visa. So
yes, reciprocity. It should pass. If you want to do a project and you want to do an NGO project in Maiduguri, you must do IELTS in Hausa. Then we will allow you to set up the NGO. Until we begin to do things like this, we will not be seen as a serious setup. Believe me.
Yeah. So coming from this now, is this part of what exactly was it that led you to establish the Cardinal Business School back in 2004? And is it a degree awarding institution?
Okay, thank you very much. So Cardinal Business School is not a degree awarding institution. Originally, we set out purely to service executives. We actually patterned our work. I originally was a banker. You can see I'm still using my old
Oh, it's frozen again. Hello.
When I'm on mute.
Yeah.
It's frozen again.
Okay.
I was even trying to get
You're back. You're back.
Okay, okay.
You froze for a while.
Yeah, so I was a banker. This was one of my my logos in the bank in those days. I worked in a few banks, and then eventually I left because I saw a pain. The pain I saw was that the quality of people that were employed even within the banking space were not strong enough to deliver the kind of value we wanted to deliver within the banking system. So I now saw that, okay, the graduates are not, they come out of university, yes, but in terms of their ability to, man the responsibility, there are still several gaps. So I said, okay, no problem. Even within the banking system, I have set up my own, evening lesson. So all my boys and girls, I put them together in the evening, teach them cash flows, teach them cash to cash cycle, how to lend effectively, how to recover effectively, all those things, as a banker, because they really were not trained in these things from the university, even those who read banking and finance or whatever. And then again, we're employing anybody who had a 2-1 and you could speak very well. You still needed to understand finance to be able to serve as a banker. From my own perspective then. So after some time, I just knew that, look, this is not my calling. Sitting down behind the desk and giving credit is not my calling. My calling really is to go out there and make a difference. So we started out as an executive education institution. So executive education essentially means that we are concerned with the work people are doing. Our interventions, it has to do with, if you're in finance, how can it be better? What are the gaps? If you're looking at the market, looking at the human resources, how do you do it better? So the whole idea was to interface business to business, work with those businesses, see their challenges, and then create another intervention that helps business employees. But as time went on, of course, evolution, we were now challenged by the fact that if you are doing to look at younger people and so on and so forth, bring your experience and knowledge to the space. Then we now say, okay, fine, not a problem. We now say education.
We lost you there.
Yeah. Hello, am I still with you?
Yes. Yes. We lost you for some seconds. I missed a few things you said.
Yeah, that the approach is not to rush and become a university. There are enough universities. What you should do is to create a program that's innovative enough, that even after graduates, young graduates have finished even after they have finished are you still with me? Yeah. Even after young graduates have they're finished, they can still come here and run programs that can help them with job creation, that can help them with innovation, that can help them make sense out of their disciplines. So we joined hands with the National Board for Technical Education, and we created a kind of institution called Innovation Enterprise Institution. So an innovation enterprise institution is a kind of an institution that actually does not go the conventional way, goes the innovative way, and creates interventions or programs that are not, you don't find them in schools. Okay, so those kind of programs are programs that, yes, you can come in direct from your youth. You can also come in direct from, having graduated. So we now started looking at things like entrepreneurship, specific things like, artificial intelligence specific, things like, market access specific, things like, opportunity screening specific, so that you can actually come and specialize in these areas. In fact, get a diploma out of that, and then you can now make sense out of your discipline. So somebody who read biochemistry now could not make sense out of that biochemistry, rather than thinking of taking that certificate and going to use it as a teacher. By the time he goes through our Innovation Enterprise Program, he now begins to see that biochemistry from an entrepreneurial perspective. The historian, rather thinking of going to secondary school and becoming a history teacher, begin to see how he can use technology to advance history. You understand? To see that our history is critical to our lives, I can use technology to commercialize history. Many researchers who have finished their research, when they go through our programs, they are not able to commercialize their research. Research is not supposed to be dumped in the shelves of the library. They're supposed to help humanity. But if you don't create a program that helps to unlock that process, then again, we're still, we are playing the ostrich. So that's kind of how we operate as a business school.
Fantastic. So it's more or less a value addition center. So whatever you have done elsewhere with regards the education anyone may have had, it's just basically to add value. Even anyone that may have been a biochemistry graduate or a physics graduate that still even wants to go back and be a teacher can be a better teacher at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Just be a teacher that is just cut and paste.
Regurgitating, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, sir. That's it.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So now, how is the Kaduna Business School located in the center of learning? Because Kaduna is the center of learning in Nigeria, and in Kaduna State, planning to intervene in a number of out-of-school children in northern Nigeria, and thereby helping to transform their will-be education, which they look forward to having, to economic and business skills in the future.
Fantastic. So, in terms of out-of-school children, during the El-Rufai administration, we were part of some interesting conversations with some agencies, and I remember very clearly it led to the establishment of what we refer to as the Edu Marshals in Kaduna State. So Edu Marshals are people who are employed to just keep going around the city, keep going around the local governments. Any child that is seen floating around is captured, and then we get the data of his parents, and then we identify any government school closest, in distance to where he lives, and then he's plugged into into an educational program for free. But beyond that, we are actually rarely looking at out-of-school children mapping, where right now, as you speak, you actually speak for out of spiritually, I don't know how to say, but we are trying to work with some donor agencies to see how we can really actually map the number of out-of-school children, within the local governments in Kaduna State, for example. And then the challenge is how to, so to say, create programs, within build capacity within the primary educational system that is not just primary 1 to 6 or primary 1 to 7, but programs within the primary educational system that also speaks to certain kids that may have crossed certain age in terms of, but they have been out of school till they were 14. You can't bring that child back to primary 1. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, so you said you can't bring the child back to primary 1.
Yeah, so how do you create a program, that is skill-based, and then it still absorbs him into a vocation, and he becomes useful, but within the primary school system, within the secondary school system. So those kind of people, because what is being done right now is still pretty much traditional. He's already 12, he's already 9, and then he wants to start doing ABCD. After some time, he becomes disenchanted, and then he just dumps it. He's not excited. He's not excited. It doesn't excite him. So, but we have to have a special intervention, because when you say out of school kids, education from the white man perspective is, incremental. There are certain things that if you didn't do it at year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, you can't just start, But innate ability is always there, and that can be harnessed. So if you gather a bunch of out-of-school kids, we try to sort them from the point of view of what is their calling, what are they feeling like doing, what are they liking, some would tell you, oh, they want to weave. Some would tell you that they like to do herbal medicine because they saw their grandfather doing it. Some would tell you so by the time we aggregate, you understand, a few of these callings, we can now plant programs within the institution, between primary and secondary schools, where some of these out of school kids can go through those kind of programs and push them into life with a skill. So our thinking is a little bit different because it has also evolved from just catching them and throwing them into school, which is what we've been doing in Kaduna State. But right now, we are working assiduously towards a kind of intervention that really secures them from their own nuanced understanding of how so we interview them and we're concerned. We look at their age, look at their calling, look at their preferences, and then try to mount those kind of programs within primary and secondary school at that early age. In China today, you see that even at age 1, 2, whatever you do, you can do tailoring, you can do cooking, you can do catering, you can do different things. So that sort of thinking is what's helping, it was guiding our thought process. Me, by the end of the year, we should be able to have something out for validation. Yes, sir.
Awesome, fantastic. I mean, what more would you expect from an innovative business school like yours?